Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Deciding to Soar, Living Life Your Own Way. My name is Sharron Jamison, and I am a corporate leader, a life strategist, and a minister and a mom. And if this is your first time joining us, welcome. I'm so grateful that you are here. And if you are joining us on YouTube, I am grateful that you are joining the podcast visually. So, welcome. This podcast is an unedited, unscripted place where I share what I'm learning in my own life, as well as what I'm learning from working with some of the most amazing leaders, entrepreneurs, healers, visionaries, and brave souls, people just like you. And today I'm excited to share a message about waiting. Because just think about your life. How many times we have been taught and told to wait? Wait until you have more experience. Wait until you know more. Wait until you move. Wait until you get older. And I believe that waiting sometimes is advisable. But I also know that waiting sometimes is not based on wisdom. It is not based on needing time to develop or needing time to prepare. What I know for sure is that there's a certain type of waiting that other people will assign to you and advise you to do when they don't understand your vision, when they don't understand your dreams, your destiny, when they don't think that you are ready or that you don't fit the mode or the paradigm or their image of something that you have been called to do. And so I think it's important to understand when we get messages like, I need you to wait. I don't think the timing is correct for you now. Just know that their no, N-O, should never supersede our no, K-N-O-W, because when we know we have been called to do something, inspired to do something, told to do something by our higher power, I call that power God, you might call that power something else. We have to understand that we should not wait, and we have to be careful that we don't spend days, months, years, sometimes decades waiting for someone to give us permission that will never come, and then we forfeit doing what we have been called to do. So I want to talk about waiting, and that the message around waiting really crystallized for me in, I would say, the early 1990s. That was a time where I wanted to get into the fitness industry, and I was already an athlete, already working out, and I had um, been approved and accredited and passed all my fitness tests, and I couldn't get hired by any of the fitness studios or the gyms because I did not fit the mold or the model or the paradigm of what a fitness instructor should look like. I was a black woman, I had hips, I had thighs, and at that time, and sometimes still today, there was a very narrow definition of what being fit meant. And there was a very narrow image or model of what a fitness professional should look like. And I didn't fit any of the image. I didn't fit the stereotype. I didn't fit the paradigm. And people will just tell me, Sharron, just wait. The opportunity will come. Just wait. Be patient. Just wait. This is not the right time for you or the right place for you, or this is not the right setting for you. And sometimes people will tell you the same, to wait, to wait, to wait. And we have to be careful to understand the difference between waiting because it's wise to wait so that we can develop and prepare. But we also have to understand that sometimes people tell us to wait. It is not because we are not qualified, not because we are not talented, not because are not passionate, but because it's really a way, a socially acceptable way to tell us no. It is a socially acceptable way to reject us. It is a softer way to say never. Never, not for you, never because you are not who we want, you are not who we like. No. And because telling somebody to wait lands differently, we have to understand somebody's no is just really disguised discouragement. It's a way to reject us, to discredit us, to ignore us. And so when I realized that no one was going to hire me in the 1990s in the fitness industry, I stopped asking for opportunities. I stopped asking for someone to hire me. I stopped asking for someone to open a door. And I asked myself a different question. The different question I ask myself is, where can I serve? Where can I serve in the fitness industry and not wait for someone to hire me in the fitness industry? And that question changed everything because I stopped looking for fitness studios to hire me and I started looking where I could serve. And as a result, I started teaching fitness classes at churches. Nobody was going to the church. I started teaching fitness classes in the community settings with cancer patients. I started teaching classes with patients who were suffering from HIV because they were shunned at that time. I started teaching classes at beauty salons. I started teaching classes with older populations, right? People who were overlooked, people who were forgotten. And because I did, I learned how to speak to different demographics, how to hold space for demographics, how to listen around diversity, how to alter different classes based on people's fitness levels, their capabilities. I learned how to interject healing and motivation to people who were going through tough times. I learned all of these different skills all because I said and asked myself, where can I serve? Where can I make a difference? How could I implement and use what I felt called to do in different settings that will welcome me? And I did. I even taught classes in the park with drums, and the whole community came out. And I wanted to share that because I feel that because I did not wait for validation and wait for opportunities, I was able to serve people right where they are and meet people right where there are different communities that were overlooked. I ended up being in the paper many times. I ended up being on Good Morning America. Can you believe that? And I would have never had or experienced any of these opportunities had I kept waiting for people to validate me, to open doors for me, to give me a yes, even though I already knew that this was something I should be doing. And so looking back, I realized that oftentimes when we want to do something, we have things in the wrong order. For example, I took some notes I think sometimes we want to do something and we wait for having the community, having the opportunity, confidence, and action. That's what we usually think of when we think of doing something new. But that was not my experience. And my experience had a completely different order that I want to share with you because I know that you are called to do something, to be something, to create something, to correct something, to participate in something. And people are telling you, wait, because they don't want to tell you no, right? And so the first step I want you to consider is the first step to do something when people tell you no or to wait is to remember conviction. Conviction. And conviction is not a hunch. It is not a random idea. It's not something you just dream up. Conviction is something that you cannot ignore. It's something that it's an idea, an issue that keeps returning over and over again for days, months, sometimes for decades. It's something that you can't shake. And sometimes our conviction shows up as tension, as friction, as discomfort. Sometimes our conviction shows up as peace. You just feel a peace in your heart. For others, it shows up as joy, as restlessness. For some of us, it shows up as a burden that we cannot shake. For some of us, it shows up as laughter. Remember, conviction will show up differently based on how we are wired and based on what God the Spirit will use to get us moving. But conviction is often the first sign that you are being called towards something. It's conviction. You can't shake it. So here's a question for you is, what keeps showing up in your life for you to do, for you to be, for you to say, and it refuses to leave you alone? What keeps showing up in your life and refusing for you to not do it because it won't leave you alone? So conviction is always the first tug to let you know you should be doing something. Conviction. The second step, when I thought about my journey and other journeys, is conviction is first, is the idea, it's the inspired push you need. The second step is courage. Courage. Because conviction alone is never enough. Let's just put that out in the open. Conviction alone is never enough. You need courage. You need courage to be misunderstood. You need courage to be rejected. You need courage to move when people won't support you. You need courage. And courage is not always something that feels bold. It doesn't always feel public. Sometimes courage is that small voice that tells you to make another call, take another approach, ask a new question, submit a different proposal, walk into another room, call another person. It is hearing someone say no or to wait and you move forward anyway. That's courage. Courage is something that gives you the strength to stay anchored and grounded in your conviction. And what I love about courage is that people think that clarity comes then courage comes. That's not true. You have conviction, that's the tug, and then you have courage, and then as you are moving forward, then the clarity comes. The clarity comes in the moving. It comes in the moving. I want you to let that land on your heart. Sometimes we think we have to see everything all laid out, the entire plan, the entire strategy. But visionaries and leaders and healers, we see the glimpse. And the glimpse is enough to let us know that we're called to greatness. We see a piece of the purpose, not the entirety. And so I want you to understand that you don't need clarity to have courage. Courage will give you the clarity. And when you do that, that's when you will start moving forward and not accepting the no or the weight that is disguised as the no. So you have the conviction, the tug in your heart, the issue, the burden, the joy, the peace, however conviction shows up. You have the courage that anchors you, and then because of the courage, you will have clarity. And the third step is creativity. Creativity. Let me tell you, every calling comes with creativity. Every calling comes with creativity. And I want you to hear that because God, you might call the higher power something else, never calls us to be clones or copycats. Never. Never. God never expects you to do something in the exact same way that someone else does something. God is a God of diversity. God is a God of dimensions. And so we have to make sure that if one door closes because someone tells us no, or tells us to wait, and we know that the waiting is not based on wisdom, we have to say, maybe God is inviting us to go through another door or create another door, right? For example, when the fitness studios and health clubs would not hire me as a fitness instructor, I said, what else could tell me yes? Well, I grew up in the church. So I said, let me go there because that was a demographic and a setting that I was really familiar with. And so I did, and I had many opportunities. I went to the park. Why? Because I always walked through the park. And people were always exercising in the park. And I said, you know what? This is a good idea to do some aerobics classes just with drums. I went through to the beauty salon. Why don't I have a class there? I was in the pharmaceutical industry and I worked with populations, with HIV populations and cancer populations. I knew those populations well. I said, create something there. So we have to remember that oftentimes our creativity is based on what is already in front of us, but we overlook it. And so I think it's important for you to think about your life. Where can you be creative based on what is already in front of you? Something for us to think about. Because here is something I want you to get into your spirit. The calling stayed the same. The delivery system changed. The calling stayed the same. The setting changed. The calling stayed the same. The conditions and the circumstances change, right? But it's the same calling. So we have to remember that when you receive a calling, you will also receive creativity. And we cannot allow someone's no or someone's advice for us to wait to supersede or get in the way of our own imagination, because we don't have boundaries because we have creativity. And we don't want someone else's boundary, someone else's limited imagination, someone else's inability to see us in a new way because they're locked into the status quo or they are imprisoned by their own paradigms to limit us. So I want you to understand callings are always supported by creativity, but creativity is something that you have to accept and know, KNOW, that you have. The fourth step after we have conviction, we have courage that will give us the clarity, we have creativity. The third step, the fourth step is the community. Now I want you to think about this. Oftentimes when people get a calling to do something that they feel compelled to do, convicted to do, some people often find themselves waiting for community, waiting for supporters before they begin. But here's the truth. Support often follows movement, which means that when you have enough courage to do something, the community will eventually come. Why? People gather around evidence. People follow success. People gather around service. People gather around consistency. People gather around visibility. So, when people say I don't have anyone to support me, or I don't have people waiting for what I can provide, you have to ask yourself, are you showing up repeatedly for your calling? Are you finding ways to be present and to participate so people can find you? The work comes first. The community, the support comes later. I'll say that again. The work comes first. Then the support comes later. The community comes later. So if you're online, that means are you on social media, YouTube, Facebook, so people can find you? If you're in the community, are you at the places where the people you serve will be? As a leader, are you at the places and in the settings, in the circumstances where the people that you will serve gather? We have to remember that people gather, people follow service, consistency, visibility, success. And success doesn't mean you have 100 people in the room. Success means that you have an impact, one person at a time. So I wanted to leave you with this. I want you to think about something that you have been called to do, told, inspired to do, divinely told to do. And think about in your life where people have told you to wait and you missed opportunities. But I want you to think about where are people telling you to wait now? And you know that the wait is not based on you not being prepared. You know that somebody telling you to wait is not based on wisdom. That they are telling you to discourage you. They're telling you to wait because they want to tell you no. They're telling you to wait because they're protecting their comfort. I want you to understand that sometimes waiting is based on wisdom. But also sometimes waiting is just a socially accepted way to reject you. It is a socially accepted way to say no. It is a socially acceptable way to ignore you. It is a socially accepted way for people not to deal with their own discomfort of engaging you, right? So I wanted to tell you this. If you know in your heart that you have a calling, you know that you're prepared as much as you can be, because remember, you're never prepared really for the journey until you're in it. But you feel like you have the education, the experience, the data, the discernment to move forward, do it. Write that book if you feel like you have a good story. If you're considering the ministry, go for it. If you want to consider retirement, if you feel like you're ready, go for it. If you want to start off again after 50, go for it. If you're ready to rebuild after a divorce, go for it. If you're ready to love again after betrayal, go for it. If you're ready to try again after embarrassment, after humiliation, after disappointment, go for it. You don't need anybody's approval. You don't need everyone to agree with you. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need to have every answer. You don't need a crowd. You don't need to wait when you know KNOW is more important than their no NO. Do it. Do it. Because you have what it takes. Trust yourself. And so if this message resonates, if you know that you don't have to wait, I want you to begin again and go for it. If you know someone who's waiting, one, I ask you to please share the podcast with them. Hopefully they will be inspired to think about their own life and to know that they only need conviction, courage, creativity, and the community will come. If you are interested in joining other people who are in this space of knowing that they want to move forward and they're tired of waiting, please join the Reclamation Circle. We are started in a couple of weeks. And July is my birth month. And during the birth month, I will be opening up more opportunities for VIPs or some one-on-one sessions. So if you're interested, my calendar is below. Would love for you to join me and for us to think about what you want to do because you know that you do not need to wait. And then I also want to invite you to join the mailing, my newsletter community. I send out a mailing every week, sometimes twice a week, where I share what I'm learning in my own life as well as what I'm learning in the lives of my clients in a more intimate way. Things that I won't share as much publicly, but I share with my newsletter community, and I want to invite you to that space. And I will leave the links to the Reclamation Circle, the podcast. Please join and subscribe, as well as to the newsletter in the links below, because I would love for you to join me wherever you feel led to join. And as we end today, I want to leave you with the benediction as you step into your own convictions with courage, knowing that you have the the creativity to do what you've been called to do, and trusting that the community will come when you show that you have impact, when you have inspiration, when you have influence. I want to leave this with you with this benediction, and it reads as follows. May you trust the conviction that continues to call your name. May you find courage before certainty. May creativity always appear when doors seem closed. May you recognize the difference between divine timing and human limitation, and may you refuse to allow someone else's hesitation to become your destiny or your truth. And may you discover that many of the opportunities you seek are waiting on the other side of your next courageous step, because you know and you believe that the best is still yet to come.